Working on Henry today. Henry Richards died in 1882, my great-great-grandfather. Headstone was damaged about 30 years ago, and a lot of the lead had fallen out, so I'm sort of quite a way through it, but I thought I'd just do a video on some of the processes I'm using. Not a lead worker, but I do work on heritage buildings for work, so I'll just show you how to do the lead lettering. The letters have holes drilled, which the lead pushes down into, which you'll see in a minute. So you need a couple of things. Just need some nice shears to cut some lead. The lead I've cut is about the width of the letter, although we're using it horizontally in the holes, you'll see that. And just a wooden mallet, flat one would be better, but this is a good lignum vitae hard one. You can hit the granite pretty hard, you're not going to break it. So what I've done is I've preformed the lead in the shape of the letters, pretty close, left a little bit on either end so you'll get coverage. When you flatten the lead out, you want it about probably a millimetre, maybe a little bit more over the face of the stone, so you'll trim it, which you'll see in a minute. So try and keep it vertical as you go, and just place it where you need it. And usually start on one spot so it seats in one of the holes. If the lead sort of starts to go off a square, you can just straighten it up again. It's not too critical, but just makes it seat nicer. Take your time, no rush. See that spreading out nicely now, getting coverage over the size of the arias on the carving. You can feel it, it's still a little bit thick, that's probably a couple of mils. Just get a feel as you go if you're doing lots of them, just sort of how much you need to, how much spread it out. That'll trim off quite nicely. Okay, that looks pretty good there. Now what I've done before I started was took a lead rubbing of the arias in the rebates for the letters. So you just got to also save the letters. If you're doing O's and things, you save the little O to get the right placement for that before you put the lead in. This is quite a funky font, so good to have the reference. That one there, I'm just a little bit short on the corner, so I'll just give that a little bit more of a beating. Lay the template on. Make sure it's pretty horizontal as well. And just carefully go around with a felt pen. And it gives me the basic outline of what I'm going to be cutting out. So you've got the end sitting there on the lead. Now next part of the video is showing cutting the E, but it's basically the same process. This little round one is really good for doing long runs, because you can roll it. Start on the outside and just roll it along. Be real careful that you starting on the line where the last one finishes. Depending on your thickness of your lead, it should come off probably with just a couple of cuts. When you give it a sand at the end, it tidies up the little edges, but you can go back with a sharp scalpel and tidy up the edges. And these have got a little scallop on the end as well, so just a slight little roll of the wrist on those. Quite a cool font for 140 odd years ago, 1882. So I said previously 200 years, but he was born 200 years ago. So this is quite cool to be doing a great-great-grandfather's headstone. I'm sure a lot of them in cemeteries of rallies are in a bit of a bad state. This guy was the first one of our family to come to New Zealand. He was an engineer stationed at Albert Barracks. So he did a lot of the preliminary building work in Auckland. The Albert Barracks as well. So yeah, quite cool to be doing that. So once I've trimmed all around, you can see I'm just rolling that round one around the edge. It's a nice sharp line. Yeah, just a bit kinder than the chisel method. So just take your time, there's no rush. It's going to be there a long time. Once you've outlined that, you can just remove the surplus lead. If it's not coming, don't pull it, because you'll just pull the lead up, although it really hangs in well in those the holes in the lead. Yeah, all sorts of little shaped chisels are cool for doing little bits. Yep, there we go. Also find the rubber gloves are good, just got to watch the lead, although it's yeah, not too bad to touch as long as you wash your hands and don't eat your sandwich straight after, but just to be safe. Also just have a good mop up when you've done of all your surfaces, just so you're not having any lead around, especially if you've got kids and things. So there we go. I'll just give it a bit of a sand. We'll give it a bit more of a tidy up all edges and trim, but that comes out pretty cool. That's an E, one for Henry. As I've been going, I found it's easier to use a small metal hammer just to start it, not to hit the stone, but just on the smaller leaders it's a bit easier because it gets the bit more control on the lead and you can get it started. Start it a bit nicer and then finish it off with the wood one to flatten it out. Little trick, letter A obviously. Left a little tab on the bottom of the lead when I've cut it, so when I hammer it in it fills the horizontal piece on the A or an E. Just means it's a lot cleaner and not micro thin joined, so that's a good little trick, that one.